The war ended without celebration. Across the wide black of space, broken ships drifted like quiet ghosts. Some were human, some were alien. All carried the scars of a battle that should have destroyed every fleet involved. Only one reason explained why it did not. A single human ground unit had held the final defense line on the moon of Karos 9. The Galactic Coalition still did not fully understand how. Human soldiers were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. Their technology was good, but not the best. And yet, when the enemy breach shattered the shield generators and the alien legions poured through, it was the humans who stayed when everyone else retreated. Lieutenant Aaron Hale was one of them. He was not famous. He was not a hero by his own words. He had simply followed orders when they stopped making sense, and when the last evacuation ship left orbit, he and his unit stayed behind. For 46 hours, they held a broken fortress with failing power and empty skies above them. When relief finally arrived, only a few humans were still standing. Aaron survived with a cracked helmet, burned armor, and a deep cut along his side that he ignored until it stopped bleeding on its own. He was quiet as medics worked on him. Quiet as officers spoke of medals and honors. Quiet as news of humanity's stand spread across the galaxy. Weeks later, he stood in the grand hall of the Virelian Empire. The hall was massive beyond reason. Tall crystal pillars reached up into glowing light fields that shifted color like slow-moving clouds. Alien nobles filled the space, their bodies shaped in elegant curves and sharp angles, decorated with rare metals and living fabrics. This was the heart of the empire, where ancient power decided the future of entire species. At the center stood the imperial throne. The emperor addressed Aaron through a translator field, his voice deep and smooth. "Human Lieutenant Aaron Hale," the emperor said, "your actions saved not only coalition forces but the Virelian home systems themselves. Our laws are clear. You are owed a prize of your choosing." A ripple of interest moved through the court. Aaron stood straight, hands behind his back. His uniform was simple, repaired many times, the insignia worn thin. He looked very small in the massive hall. "You may choose wealth," the emperor continued. "Land, command, technology beyond your people's current reach. Or a bond with our royal bloodline." The nobles leaned forward at that. Several princesses stood nearby, each carefully presented. They were beautiful by Virelian standards. Tall, radiant, confident. Each had trained for this moment since birth. Their eyes followed Aaron with practiced calm. Aaron did not look at them. His gaze moved instead to the far edge of the hall. There, half hidden behind a tall pillar, stood another figure. She was smaller than the others. Her colors were muted, her ceremonial markings simple. She did not stand straight like the rest. Her posture was careful, almost guarded, as if she hoped no one would notice her presence at all. Princess Sarai, the least admired daughter of the emperor. Whispers followed his gaze. Aaron took a slow breath. "I choose her," he said. Silence crashed into the hall. The translator field repeated the words, just in case anyone had misheard. Shock spread instantly. Nobles stared. Some laughed quietly, thinking it was a joke. Others looked offended, as if he had insulted the empire itself. The emperor did not speak for a long moment. "You must be mistaken," the emperor finally said. "Princess Sarai is unsuitable. She holds no political advantage. She has no command authority, no strategic value." Aaron nodded once. "I understand." The emperor studied him closely. "Then explain your choice." Aaron's voice remained calm. "She was the only one not looking at me like I was a trophy." A ripple of discomfort moved through the court. Sarai froze where she stood. She had not expected anyone to notice her at all. The emperor's eyes shifted toward his daughter. For a brief moment, something unreadable crossed his expression. Then tradition took control. "Very well," the emperor said. "The law is clear. Your choice is accepted." The hall erupted into quiet chaos. Some nobles protested. Others mocked the human openly. The favored princesses looked away, anger and disbelief sharp in their expressions. Sarai felt the weight of every stare as an attendant guided her forward. Her heart raced. She had lived her entire life being overlooked. Her biology was considered imperfect. Her talents were strange, difficult to measure. She did not shine in court politics or ritual displays. To most of her people, she was a reminder of imbalance, of something that did not fit. Now, suddenly, she was chosen, not as a ruler, not as a leader, as a prize. She stopped a few steps away from Aaron. Up close, the human looked damaged but steady. His armor still carried marks from battle. His eyes were tired but not cold. He did not look at her with judgment, fear, or ownership. He simply met her gaze. "I won't force you into anything," he said quietly, his translator tuned only to her frequency. "If you want protection and distance from this place, I can offer that." Sarai blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. The emperor raised a hand. "Princess Sarai will accompany you to human space under coalition oversight. The bond shall be recorded. May this alliance stand as proof of unity." The words sounded formal, final. Sarai felt something inside her break and reform at the same time. She bowed as protocol demanded. Aaron bowed too, awkward but respectful. As they turned to leave the hall together, the whispers followed them like shadows. Some said the human was foolish. Some said he was cruel. Some said the princess was lucky. Sarai did not know which was worse. The journey to the human transport ship was quiet. They walked through long corridors of living stone and light. Guards followed at a respectful distance. Sarai kept her hands folded, her mind racing. At last she spoke. "Why me?" she asked softly. Aaron stopped walking. He considered the question carefully as if it mattered. "In the fortress," he said, "everyone told us to retreat. Censors said we would lose. Command said the position was expendable." He looked at her. "But the ground said otherwise. It could still be held. Most people didn't see that. They only saw numbers." Sarai listened, confused but attentive. "You stood the same way," he continued. "Still present, still standing. Everyone else tried to look important. You tried to disappear. That is not a strength," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Humans learned a long time ago that survival doesn't always look impressive." The transport ship came into view. It was smaller than imperial vessels, practical and worn. Sarai felt a strange sense of relief looking at it. As they boarded, she glanced back once at the palace. She did not feel sadness, only distance. The ship lifted off smoothly. Stars stretched into lines as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. Sarai was assigned a private cabin. Before leaving, Aaron paused at the doorway. "You're safe here," he said. "No one will mock you. No one will demand anything from you." She hesitated. "And you?" "I'll just be a soldier again," he replied. After he left, Sarai sat alone in the quiet cabin. For the first time in her life, no one expected her to fail. No one expected her to shine either. The galaxy believed she had been chosen because she was worthless. The truth was much more dangerous. She closed her eyes, unaware that her overlooked abilities, dismissed by her own people for generations, would soon be tested by forces far greater than imperial judgment. And when that time came, both humanity and the galaxy would learn the cost of underestimating the unchosen. The stars outside the transport ship stretched into long, silvery streaks as it sailed through the void. Inside, the quiet hum of the engines filled the cabin, but Sarai could hear the constant ticking of her own thoughts. She had never left her homeworld before, never stepped beyond the palace walls, never imagined herself traveling among the stars with a human soldier. And yet here she was, chosen, carried by someone she barely understood. Aaron moved through the ship with a calm that seemed natural, almost boring to anyone who didn't know what he had endured. He checked the engines, reviewed communications, and occasionally glanced at navigation charts that flashed strange, alien symbols. He spoke little, but when he did, it was simple, precise, and unshakable. Sarai watched him, studying his gestures, his careful attention to details, and the way he seemed to absorb chaos and bend it into order. Days passed without incident, though each day carried its own lessons. Sarai learned to move in the ship's low gravity, to communicate using human phrasing she barely understood, and to trust the routines Aaron enforced. At first, she followed without question, unsure if she should act or simply wait. But the human soldier never treated her as fragile or ignorant. He treated her as someone capable of understanding, someone who could matter in a world that had never given her importance. Their first real test came when the ship detected a small fleet of raiders approaching. They were not an organized military force, but scavengers from a neighboring system who had learned to hunt weakened transport ships. Most of the crew, human and alien alike, went into tense preparation, but Aaron and Sarai took different roles. He ran diagnostics, stabilized the engines, and coordinated evasive maneuvers. Sarai watched, uncertain, until she noticed the control panel she had been trained on in palace studies, the one used for complex systems, flickering in a warning. She had learned the basics in her childhood, how to balance energy flow, how to stabilize failing circuits, but no one had ever thought she would need to use it for anything serious. Without asking, she touched the controls, feeling the strange pulse of energy under her fingers. She rerouted power from the auxiliary systems to the shields, balancing the load precisely. Aaron glanced over, impressed but silent. "Good," he said simply, returning to his station. That one word, unadorned, struck Sarai more than praise from any court official ever could. They survived the encounter without damage, the raiders fleeing when the shields flared to life. Afterward, Sarai remained quiet in her cabin, trying to make sense of the moment. For the first time, she realized that her people had been wrong about her. Her talents were not useless, they were just unseen. Aaron had recognized them immediately, without judgment, without hesitation. The days continued like this, a series of quiet lessons and small triumphs. They shared meals, which were strange combinations of human and alien rations. They practiced conversation, each learning the other's language, though slowly. Aaron told her about Earth, about deserts and oceans and mountains. He spoke of how humans survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they adapted, because they noticed details others missed, and because they cared for one another in ways that often seemed small but mattered most. Sarai began to speak too, sharing fragments of her life she had never shared. How she had spent nights in the palace gardens, studying plants that the empire considered useless. How she had designed small devices that no one ever tested. How she had watched her siblings praised for beauty, strategy, or skill, while she faded into shadows. Aaron listened, asking little, simply giving her the space to tell. One night during a long jump between systems, the ship trembled. Sensors warned of a sudden gravitational anomaly nearby, a collapsing star remnant, a rogue black hole moving too close to the trade lanes. The crew scrambled, but it was Aaron and Sarai who acted first. Aaron called out orders, directing the crew to stabilize the engines. Sarai, noticing that the energy regulators were overloading, touched the controls again. Her hands moved with confidence now, rerouting power, balancing flows, anticipating the ship's needs before the alarms could fully register. The shields flared, the engines roared, and together they guided the ship past the anomaly with minimal strain. When the danger passed, the crew looked at her with astonishment. This was no longer the quiet, overlooked princess. This was someone capable of changing the course of survival in moments of extreme crisis. Aaron smiled at her quietly. "You learn fast," he said. Sarai flushed at the acknowledgement. For the first time, she felt a sense of belonging. Not in the palace, not in the empire, but here, on this human ship, beside this soldier who trusted her instinctively. As they approached the outer rim of human-controlled space, new challenges emerged. Word of her travel with a human had spread across the galaxy. Some enemies thought she was a key asset, though none understood why. Pirates, mercenaries, and opportunists tried to intercept them, hoping to capture her. Each time, Aaron and Sarai worked together to evade or neutralize threats. In one encounter, a small strike team boarded the ship mid-jump. The intruders were trained killers, moving fast and coordinated. Aaron engaged them directly, using tactics no alien force had anticipated from humans, unorthodox, adaptive, and deadly in precision. Sarai moved beside him, using her understanding of the ship's systems to lock doors, reroute power, and create barriers. The two worked seamlessly, instinctively. When the threat ended, the ship bore minor damage, and the intruders were left drifting in escape pods, defeated. Afterward, Sarai felt a strange exhilaration. Danger, which she had always feared, had revealed a part of her she had never known. She was capable, strong, valuable. Aaron had not only recognized this but encouraged it. "You have a gift," he said quietly that night, "one that the Empire never understood. One that could save lives if you use it right." Sarai sat in silence, the words echoing in her mind. The Empire had mocked her. Her people had overlooked her. Yet here in human space she had a purpose, and more than that, someone who believed in her. The journey continued, each day filled with small victories, learning and trust building. They passed through debris fields, navigated unstable wormholes, and negotiated with alien traders who saw humans as inferior. Aaron always handled the diplomacy calmly, but Sarai began to contribute, using knowledge the Empire had dismissed as useless. She solved minor technical puzzles, adjusted energy flows, and even suggested alternate routes that saved fuel and time. By the time they reached the edge of the Coalition space, whispers about the human soldier and the overlooked princess had begun to circulate. Some doubted her usefulness. Others were curious how a human could recognize value that the Empire itself had ignored. Sarai no longer doubted herself. She had learned that being unnoticed was not weakness, it was preparation. Those who ignored her had underestimated what she could do. Those who mocked her had overlooked the possibility that human insight could see potential where others could not. When the transport ship finally docked at the human station, she stepped out with Aaron by her side. The station's corridors were unfamiliar, crowded with humans, aliens, and officials. She felt a strange sense of calm. She had survived pirates, anomalies, and the vast emptiness of space. She had discovered her abilities and her courage. Aaron guided her through the station. "We need to keep moving," he said. "There are still those who want to test you to see if the human's choice was a mistake. Let's make sure they see it was." For the first time, Sarai smiled freely. She did not feel fear. She felt readiness. She had been the least admired, the overlooked, the ignored. But now, with a human soldier who chose her not for glory but for potential, she had become someone who could make a difference. And the galaxy had not yet seen the full extent of what she could do. Together, they walked forward into the human-controlled corridors, facing a future neither of them fully understood, yet both ready to meet. Each step echoed with the promise that what others dismissed could, in fact, change the fate of worlds. Sarai no longer saw herself as the least. She saw herself as the unseen, the underestimated, the one who could survive when all odds claimed she could not. And beside her, Aaron Hale, the human soldier, watched the same stars she now understood held infinite possibilities. The first real bond between human and alien had formed, not through ceremony or political advantage, but through trust, courage, and recognition of unseen potential. And already, the galaxy was beginning to whisper that this quiet princess might be far more important than anyone had ever imagined. The adventure was far from over. The tests of skill, courage, and ingenuity that awaited them in human space and beyond would challenge everything she had ever known about herself and the empire she left behind. But Sarai no longer doubted. She had survived the stars and had earned a place beside a human who saw what others could not. And in that quiet understanding, the unchosen princess began to feel something entirely new: hope. The human station was alive with motion and noise, a chaotic blend of species, languages, and commerce. Sarai walked beside Aaron Hale, her footsteps cautious but steady. Every corridor, every crowd, reminded her that this was a universe much larger than the Virelian palace she had once known, and a universe that judged her still, but differently now. Here, she could not rely on titles, lineage, or appearance. She had to rely on herself and the soldier who had chosen her when the galaxy thought she was worthless. Aaron led her through the bustling halls, explaining the customs and protocols of human-controlled space. Unlike the Empire, humans relied less on rigid hierarchy and more on cooperation, intuition, and merit. Sarai found it strange at first, unsettling even. In the Empire, every gesture, every glance was a statement of rank. Here, humans and aliens alike were valued for what they could contribute, and the human soldier embodied this principle perfectly. Within days, the station received urgent news. A fleet of rogue warships, remnants of a separatist alien faction, had moved toward the human-controlled trade routes. They sought to claim supplies, enslave colonists, and sow chaos. The coalition had intelligence that suggested the warships were commanded by a ruthless tactician who had already destroyed several civilian convoys. Aaron was called to a council of human officers and coalition delegates. Sarai followed, unsure if she would be needed, yet drawn by the sense that she would not be sidelined for long. The council chamber was tense. Maps of star systems and trade lanes hovered in holographic projection above a polished table. Humans, Virelians, and representatives of other species leaned over the glowing images, debating strategies. Many underestimated the importance of Sarai's presence. To them, she was still the quiet princess, a political curiosity at best. Aaron, however, refused to leave her out. "She knows systems," he said simply, and that statement alone earned a few raised eyebrows. Sarai stepped forward, her voice steady but cautious. "I've studied the energy grids and supply lines of the outer colonies. I can predict where their jumps will strain the system, where we can intercept them without risking civilians." A ripple of surprise passed through the council. No one had expected the least admired princess of a distant empire to speak with authority. But Aaron's calm nod encouraged her, and she continued, pointing out anomalies in the fleet's projected paths and suggesting weak points that could be exploited. By the end of the briefing, a plan had formed. Aaron would lead the fleet's defense, while Sarai would oversee technical operations, managing energy distribution, navigation anomalies, and defense protocols. Together, they represented a combination of human adaptability and hidden alien ingenuity. The next days were a whirlwind. Sarai adapted quickly to human technology, using her unique understanding of alien systems to integrate with the station's defenses. She discovered that her abilities were not just useful, they were critical. The rogue warships relied on unpredictable energy patterns, systems her people had long dismissed as anomalies. While most specialists struggled to adapt, she could sense the patterns, anticipate surges, and stabilize the station's grids in real time. During the first engagement, the rogue fleet appeared near a remote convoy. Aaron directed human ships to strategic positions, while Sarai monitored the energy grids, adjusting power flows to shields and weapons. The rogue commander underestimated the human and the quiet princess. Their coordination was seamless. Every adjustment Sarai made amplified the human fleet's efficiency. Shields held where they should have faltered, weapons fired with precision that left no gaps, and the convoy remained untouched. The enemy retreated in confusion, their strategy unraveling faster than they could respond. After the battle, Human officers and alien delegates alike looked at Sarai with new eyes. Whispers that once dismissed her as weak now acknowledged her insight and courage. The soldier who had chosen her smiled quietly from the bridge, proud but unassuming. Over the following weeks, Sarai's reputation grew. She trained with human engineers, studied alien tech, and developed methods to predict fleet movements. Each success against the rogue faction was a lesson, a demonstration that humans valued potential over presentation. She learned not just to survive, but to excel. Yet danger remained. Intelligence reports indicated that the rogue commander had noticed the interference and intended a direct attack on the station itself. This time, their plan was more aggressive, a full-scale assault aimed at overwhelming the defenses and capturing the station. Aaron prepared for battle with the calm precision of someone who had survived impossible odds before. Sarai worked tirelessly to reinforce shields, optimize energy distribution, and develop contingency protocols. Unlike previous encounters, the enemy was formidable, well-coordinated, and relentless. The battle began with sudden alarms. Explosions rocked the station, and warning lights painted the corridors red. Aaron coordinated human and allied forces, issuing rapid-fire commands, adapting strategies as enemy maneuvers shifted. Sarai moved among the technical consoles, predicting energy spikes and rerouting power to critical systems. An enemy ship breached the outer shield, heading toward the main energy core. Sarai acted instinctively, calculating the surge needed to reinforce containment fields without overloading the system. The station shook as the power hummed and flared under her control, but the breach held. Aaron boarded a small fighter to intercept the enemy ship, trusting Sarai to maintain the station's defenses. She watched the projections, fingers dancing across controls, energy streams bending to her will. The rogue ship fired repeatedly, but each attack was countered, redirected, and absorbed. Hours passed like minutes. Sarai remained focused, aware that the slightest miscalculation could mean destruction. Every time a projection predicted failure, she adjusted instantly, correcting paths, stabilizing systems, and keeping the station intact. Finally, Aaron's fighter delivered the decisive strike, disabling the rogue ship's engines. The remaining enemy vessels retreated, unable to press the attack. The station had survived and civilians were safe. In the aftermath, leaders gathered to acknowledge the efforts of the defenders. Applause and congratulations flowed freely, but it was the quiet human soldier and the formerly overlooked princess who drew the most attention. Humans praised Aaron for his leadership, while the alien delegates, once skeptical of Sarai, recognized her extraordinary skill. Sarai felt a strange mix of relief and pride. She had faced danger, contributed directly to survival, and proven her worth. The whispers of mockery from the Empire seemed distant and irrelevant now. Her abilities, dismissed for a lifetime, had become the key to victory. Aaron approached her afterward, his armor still scarred, his expression calm. "You did well," he said, "more than well. You saved lives today, not because of title or lineage, but because you saw what others could not." Sarai looked at him, understanding finally dawning. The choice he had made weeks ago had not been foolish or reckless. It had been human. He had chosen potential, courage, and intelligence over appearance, status, and expectation. He had chosen someone he believed could matter in a universe that had overlooked her. I never expected to be," she began, then stopped, unsure how to describe what she felt. Aaron simply smiled, understanding her unspoken words. "You were meant for more," he said. "The galaxy just needed to see it." In the following weeks, Sarai became an advisor to the station, a bridge between human strategy and alien insight. Other species who had doubted her began to respect her, seeking her opinion on technical matters, fleet coordination, and energy systems. Her talents became known not for their novelty but for their effectiveness. She often reflected on the irony. The empire that had ignored her, the people who had mocked her, had been blind to her greatest strengths. But the humans had seen what mattered. Aaron had seen it too. And together, they had turned that unseen potential into survival, strategy, and success. The unchosen princess had risen not through ceremony or inheritance, but through action, courage, and trust. She had discovered a new sense of identity, one rooted not in titles or expectations, but in her own abilities and the humans who recognized them. When the station finally quieted and the threat of the rogue fleet was neutralized, Sarai stood with Aaron on the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before them, distant and beautiful, filled with unknown possibilities. "I never thought I would matter," she said quietly. Aaron looked at her, calm and unwavering. "You always did. You just needed someone to notice." The galaxy, which had once dismissed her as insignificant, had now seen the truth. The princess who had been least admired became a symbol of what humans valued most: insight, courage, adaptability, and the ability to rise above expectations. And beside her, Aaron Hale, the human soldier who had made a choice that shocked an empire, stood ready for whatever the stars would throw at them next. Sarai finally understood the depth of his choice. It was not a reward, it was recognition. And in that recognition, she found her true place in the galaxy. The unchosen princess had become unshakable. The galaxy had underestimated her. And in that underestimation, humanity had found its greatest ally among the stars. Together, human and alien, they looked toward the future, unafraid, ready, and infinitely capable.